Hello everyone, my name is Hilde Remoy. This is Vincent Taapken.
Hi.
Vincent, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, as you said, I'm Vincent Taapken. I was born and raised in Rotterdam. I'm a real estate developer. Actually, I call myself an urban developer because it's basically my company, New Industry Development. I started middle of the crisis, 2009, as a response to the traditional real estate industry. And I called my company New Industry because of what Obama said, the cause of all the problems we have is that we think is an old industry. So I thought, well, might as well you name your company New Industry and come up with new innovative ideas.
Yeah. So we're standing here in front of a building that you just bought and that you have plans to redevelop.
Yeah.
Can you also tell us a bit more about this building?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about the area we're in. We're actually in the island Feyenoord, which is on the south bank of Rotterdam. And I started my company with buying 2 factories just in the street here. And as I was developing that 2 buildings, I found this building by cycling past it every day. And I thought, wow, this is a beautiful listed building. Obviously it's old and we don't have as much old anymore in Rotterdam. So I thought, well, we might as well come up with a plan for it. And one of the things is that this used to be an old cement factory. This whole park used to be a cement factory. And the cement factory was, stopped functioning in, let's say, the late 80s. And the municipality wanted the area of the cement factory to be transformed into housing. But the soil of the land was polluted, so they needed to filter it, and there was so much money. It cost so much money that they thought, well, we'll make it a temporary park, and resulted basically in a final park, in the definitive development of a park. And the owner of the land that sold it to the municipality was the family Van Waning. Which the building itself, this was the headquarters of the Van Waning family when they had the cement factory. It was designed and built in 1896. And in the end, this was the headquarters of the cement factory, where like the direction of the company and the engineers were actually engineering the concrete for the factory.
It's a building with a very interesting story. And what are your plans? How will you, what you intend to do with this building in the future?
Well, I've had plans for the last 7.5 years, but
so the plan. 7.5 years, but nothing much has happened yet.
No, actually nothing has happened yet. Yeah. The building is owned by the municipality, and I came up with a plan to make it actually a meeting place in the area, because there's not so many restaurants, there's not so many bars, cafes, and it's a combination. The whole area is a combination of 2 large companies, Unilever and Hunter Douglas, and a collection of smaller companies. So I came up with the idea, so if you want to make this new life for this historic building, what best would it be to make a cafe, restaurant and bar, so you can actually enjoy the park, enjoy the listed building and the history, the story of the history, and drink, meet, eat, and maybe get married here, or have business meetings and everything else you would do in a bar and restaurant.
When you start a project like this, how do you start? How do you come to the idea to develop this into a restaurant?
It's quite simple actually, because you follow your gut feeling. You look at it, and you travel around the world and you travel around the Netherlands, and you see that park areas in neighborhoods that are very close to the city center are all coming up as being more interesting areas to live and to work, but hardly have any sort of meeting spaces. And obviously a listed building with such a story, with such an history, always attracts people, like the Hotel New York building, or most of the buildings that are turned into the restaurants are actually have an interesting story. So a meeting place for the city was quite easily found as a function.
So you call it gut feeling.
Yeah.
I think gut feeling is something that takes some time to develop. So for students, researchers who just start thinking about building adaptation and adaptive reuse,
Yeah.
they might not have this gut feeling that quickly because according to what you explain, it seems that your gut feeling is also very much based on experience and on studies and what you have done in the past and so on.
Yeah.
So
True.
how would you advise them to start such a project?
Well, it's a good question. I think by being local, taking aware of what the context is of the area, to know like the social, cultural, and to know a little bit about the society and the social cultural aspects of the neighborhood where it's in, so the location.
Yeah.
Try to know what the location is about, what people live here, what is the vision of the municipality. So what is is there a master plan? What companies in the area? What is missing? So it's more analyzing, and so a gut feeling is more of what would it need? But I was born and raised here, so I know the context quite well.
Context. Yes.
And if I look at, if you would do this like from the outside in, then basically I think talking to locals is the most important thing that I would start with.
Yeah.
And this is as simple as going to a neighbor and asking the neighbor, so what do you think? Why is it there, just being there?
Yeah.
Why is it not in use? And then you start hearing stories, and the stories actually add up. So if you do the interviews, then you add up, and then you get a picture of why things are not developed or empty.
Yeah.
And then from there you can start projecting your own ideas.
So this is your method. Can you tell us a bit about your drive?
Well, the drive.
Why this kind of projects? Why don't you just do new developments, new buildings in greenfield areas?
Good question.
Would it be much easier?
Yeah, it's much easier. No, this is the kind of I like urbanism. That's why I call myself an urban developer rather than a project developer, because every initiative I take, I want the rest of the city, or at least the neighborhood, to benefit of the project. Yeah. Which in most cases where I see project developers that are only interested in their own little plot and making a sort of maximizing profit project, which is in that case only based on money. Yeah. And I try to focus on money and value. Okay. So what does it add to the neighborhood in the area?
So value for the neighborhood.
Value for the neighborhood, but also like monumental value, because which is very important. A city like Rotterdam we don't have as much historic buildings left. No. So you should cherish them and nurture them and treat them well. Yeah. And obviously that hasn't been done with this in the last 25 years. So it's also sort of it's also marketing. So it's not all, because a lot of people like old buildings, and there's studies that historic buildings actually are commercially more valuable than newly built, even though you make beautiful architecture. Yeah. An old historic building has its own value in itself. Yeah.
Nice. Should we have a look at the building?
Yeah.
Can we have a walk around?
We can have a walk around.
Thank you.